I guess since 2011, when we held the World Social Forum in Senegal. Yes. There, CIDSE and partners from Europe, from Africa, met with other groups of the civil society. Some of them were part of the social forum. Other time was the birth of Beyond 2015, which was that campaign of the civil society that aimed at getting an overarching framework to replace the Millennium Development Goals, having learned the lesson of MGGs, where civil society was not involved, and of course it was a top-down agenda, something that still came from northern countries, telling southern countries what they needed to do to reach where they are as developed countries. At that meeting in Dakar, it was said, well, we are not going to leave this opportunity slip us by any longer. We are going to engage the process. And so CIDSE and other partners, they just mixed with the civil society to have a common and joint struggle. That was the beginning of Beyond 2015, which became a real umbrella of civil society worldwide, recognized officially by the United Nations and member state countries. And of course, I spent 4 years, that's 2 terms, as a member of the executive committee of Beyond 2015. But that was something that came as a result of our cooperation with CIDSE. You see, the main learning as far as my activism in the civil society is concerned, that you can influence more by being what Jesus calls the leaven in the dough. Go inside. Bring in your ideas. Let your ideas be assumed by a bigger and larger group. Your name may eventually be lost a little, but your idea will gain prominence. And nobody today who is able to say it is the Catholic Church that led Beyond 2015. And yet, if you go in there, you will discover the Catholic Church, you will discover CIDSE, you will discover the partners of CIDSE like CAFOD. You know, the Mrs. Ellen Sirleaf Johnson was one of the co-chairs of the high-level panel appointed by the Secretary General of the UN in order to lead, to kickstart the process of post-2015. CIDSE with SECAM are these major consultation in Accra to just get the issue of policy, to design a policy paper from SECAM. I mean, this is the time SECAM learned from the experience that might have been accumulated by CIDSE dealing with the European Union, learning lessons from member organizations. SECAM were able to pick some lessons from CIDSE and say, how do we engage politicians to influence them? And he said, look, Madam Sirleaf Johnson is representing the whole of Africa. She cannot be allowed to go to the UN, to the global level, where she was with Cecilio Yundoyano from Indonesia and David Cameron from Britain. He said, no, we need at the African level to influence what she's going to say. So a position paper was presented to Sirleaf Johnson by SECAM. A delegation went to Monrovia to meet her and present that document. That is tick number 1 achievement. From there, the collaboration between SECAM and African Working Group, the civil society, that is in an extension of the policy document that were designed in Accra. Above all, for the first time, all faith-based institutions in Africa, from Christian to non-Christians. Christians included Methodists, Anglicans, Presbyterians, non-Christians including like the Baha'i, the Muslims. All these groups came and met in Entebbe in Uganda. But that was the ultimate where Africa produced a position paper by all faiths in Africa. And that ended up being a lead document at the UN because other faiths had to copy from Africa. You know, it's not common that people say they are going to learn from Africa. But you see, these are things that were prompted from within by SECAM. In Entebbe, SECAM became one of, but Madam Sirleaf Johnson couldn't help. She sent the minister to that conference, but she openly, in her own television conference she gave, she mentioned SECAM as the leading organization in engaging Africans in the post-2015 process. You see, so we have come really a long way of mutual lessons learning and being accompanied also through the experience of SECAM, the CIDSE. SECAM was able to be prompted and prompt others into action. Now, the framing of the messages of CIDSE, CAFOD, and the partners was based on the Catholic social teachings. Not mentioning necessarily the Bible, but the key values on the basis of which the messages were framed came from the Catholic social teachings. And that made them to be more acceptable. I can't remember anybody saying, oh, this one is looking to Catholics. And yet you could see they are fundamentally part of the Catholic values.